Hi, YouTube. Today is May 11th, 2014, and I am still living in Zhengzhou. It is a beautiful day. It is a beautiful day today. Yesterday it was raining and smoggy foggy, and it washed most of the smog away. So it's pretty lovely. This blog post today is about teaching because somebody had sent me a message and requested that I talk a little bit about teaching because they are thinking about coming over and doing a teaching course or class or, working in China. So, this is what I have to say about teaching. There will be a lot of challenges and frustrations for you when you embark upon your either temporary teaching career in China or your long-term teaching career in China. I am not going to go into any of those challenges. I think that you will figure them out on your own. But if you have any specific questions or you want me to mention challenges that I've encountered, feel free to send me a message on the Google or whatever on YouTube, and I'll get back to you. I'm just going to talk about specifically what I do. So I will start with my background in case you're curious about what do I need in order to teach in China. And then I will talk about what I do in my classrooms. So I have two bachelors. I have a bachelor in theater performance, and I have a bachelor in literature and writing. English literature with a writing minor. And I also have a Master's of Writing certificate, and I have two certificates in training for facilitating and coaching. So my actual classroom experience or teaching experience, for 6 years I worked with an organization, and which was an outreach organization. So I would work with youth, generally labeled at-risk youth, and go into their schools or go into closed facilities, juvenile detention centers, community centers, and I would be a facilitator for creative writing. So my job was to get people to write. I didn't have a lot of rules. We would have general guidelines creating safety in writing and safety in expression, but as far as grammar, spelling, structure, all of that stuff, it wasn't important. In the writing process, that stuff comes later. The most important thing is to actually sit down and write and to actually have your thoughts on paper and to recognize that your voice is valuable and worthwhile and needed. So that's what I did for 6 years. And I mostly worked with kids from the ages of 15 to 18 years old, sometimes a little bit younger, and I've worked with elderly before. And another thing that I did was working for an organization called Playwrite Incorporated, and what they did was go also into schools and teach or coach kids how to write their own play. And then after they completed writing this play, which was a very, very emotional process to go through, and the emotional process is the important part of it. I won't talk about that. You can always look up Playwright. I'll put it down in the information box and see what that's all about. But those kids, once they complete their play, they also become the director, and then I would act in their performances. So that's what I did I was doing Playwright and Write Around Portland simultaneously while working other jobs. So that's my experience working with youth. And like I said, my background is with it's a really general umbrella term to say at-risk youth, but kids that may be more exposed to risks, more exposed to drugs, violence, lack of education, or maybe they just get lost in the education system and have bad experiences and they just kind of disappear. So, which leaves them open and more vulnerable to making bad decisions at times. We know most of us understand this. So I don't think you have to have any of that experience in order to apply. Most places in China want you to have at least a bachelor's, and I think they prefer you to have a bachelor's in English. But you don't have to. I mean, you can have a bachelor's in nursing and still come over and teach English if you are if English is your native language. And I think it might be getting harder if you don't have your bachelor's to come over and get a job, but I'm not 100% positive about that. I don't have a teaching certificate or a TEFL certificate. And I still was hired into a high school. So where do I work? I work in a high school, and I work with kids that are 15 to 18 years old. I think actually 16 to 18 years old. And it is a program within a high school. So there's the high school, and then there's this private program. It is a business. I have my feelings about business and education, but I'm not going to share them right now, or ever maybe, I don't know. And this is a Sino-US program. So all of the kids that are in my program are interested in going to school in the United States. So the Sino-US program is technically supposed to be set up like a mirror school of an American high school. So they have to take subject courses in English. And I am a subject teacher, and what I teach is literature, which is great because literature is my background. Now, a few things. This is just the most I'm going to say about challenges. Is I wasn't really prepared for the range of English ability. I was under the impression, based on my interview, that my kids would be farther along with English than they actually are. So I came in thinking that I was going to be teaching a 10th grade level English, and it kind of ranges between sometimes third grade English, which is really challenging because literature in any language is the elevated use of that language. So here you have ESL students. You're learning English as your second language, and I'm supposed to be teaching it at an elevated level, which is already challenging for native speakers of any language learning literature. And now here I am trying to teach this to kids who are learning it as a second language. So I'm going to throw in some metaphors and similes and elements of fiction and nonfiction, while some of them are still trying to just learn how to speak English and communicate on a basic day-to-day level. And then there's all kinds of obstacles in doing that, which, I'm going to let go of. So what am I doing? Well, last semester I taught The Outsiders. Originally, I was given this really thick tome of a book of literature, and honestly, I wasn't interested in the book. The kids were definitely not interested in the book. They were really bored. It was challenging to teach, but I was also bored, and there's nothing worse than being bored and trying to teach students, and if you're boring, they're going to be bored. So I decided to teach The Outsiders. And we read the entire novel, and then we also watched the 1985 movie with Matt Dillon and, God, who else is in that? Thomas C. Howell, Ralph Macchio, all the guys that were considered American heartthrobs in the 80s. And that was really fun to actually watch them watch this, because I think all of my kids were born after 1985. But it was great to see their reactions to this movie. And Dally, Matt Dillon's character, still very popular. Still appeals. He appeals through the ages and through the cultures. And then after that, let's see, what else did I do? Oh, for that, I had them do a scene. So they took a scene from the book and they had to write it out, and then they acted it. And everyone did the same scene, which was when Bob and the Socs jump Johnny and Ponyboy, and Johnny ends up killing Ponyboy. So it was really entertaining, especially when all the Socs come to attack Ponyboy and Johnny. So that's what they did, and then the final included elements of fiction, plot lines, characterizations, things like that, point of view. And then this semester has been really challenging for me. As those of you who have watched any of these videos know, my mom died this semester recently, and so I'd only been back in China for my holiday for 4 days before I got the news that she had died, and then I had to go home for 2 weeks and clean her apartment and take care of things and then come back. So I just have been not of a good state of mind, and I've pretty much lost a month worth of school. I tried to go back to using the literature book, but it just didn't work. So I don't know what was wrong with me. I mean, I can imagine what's wrong with me, but I just got in my mind to teach Beowulf, and that was the stupidest thing I think that maybe you can ever do to somebody is teach Beowulf to ESL students who are all over the place. But it happened. I did it. We got through it. I ended up really getting to know Beowulf. I had taken the poem and broke it down into scene-by-scene bits, and then we watched the 2008 or 9 version with Angelina Jolie, which is absolutely terrible. But we watched that and went through the poem, and then for their midterm, they had to compare and contrast the differences between the movie and the poem, and they also had to give their opinions on which they enjoyed more, and also their guesses or opinions on why they think the director chose to go away from the poem and why the director chose to completely ignore the heroic code, which is the most important element of the poem. That went really well. They all did quite well. Most of them did quite well on the midterm, and they ended up enjoying the poem more, which I was really surprised, because originally they liked the movie more because of, pretty much mostly naked golden Angelina Jolie, and even the girls are in love with her. And but because of the lack of the heroic code, which I'm happy to say that they understood that, they tended to like the poem more. Yay! That's a literature plus. So what are we doing now for the final part of the semester? My advanced class is learning The Great Gatsby, and we're going through it chapter by chapter and going through characterization. Characterization right now. We also watched the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. And my other 2 classes are doing History of American Literature, and we watched 12 Years a Slave, which is an example of slave narrative, and they are currently writing their own narrative nonfiction pieces, and we will probably just get into post-Civil War post-Civil War, early existentialist period. I'm not going to use those words, existentialism, with my kids, but moving into the Walt Whitman poetry, and I'll have them write their own poems. We'll see how that goes. It's a lot of fun, and sometimes it's not. Actually, I want to be really honest right here. I love my kids. I love them, even when I'm super pissed off at them. I really like my kids. It's some of the stuff that happens outside of the classroom and the system itself that gets really frustrating. And because of the way the system's set up, sometimes the kids will behave in frustrating manners. Your greatest nemesis when you come here is going to be the cell phone. They will be the greatest nemesis that you will encounter. If you have any specific questions, You can go ahead and send me a message to ask. If I've got I have 18 classes a week, and I started out with 75 students, and now I have less because they've all left for TOEFL testing. TOEFL is a really big deal here. Gaokao is a really big deal here. It's all about testing. Your classes may fluctuate in size, but I'm only speaking about my one school. I don't really know how it is in other types of programs. Okay, yay, 15:30, I did it. So good luck to you if you're coming over here, and I will talk again later. Bye.